All right there, everyone. It's time to have a little fun here. George Soros has now been officially banned from 6 different nations. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. That's right. As we're seeing Soros's fingerprints around the so-called whistleblower's complaint that references Soros-funded organizations several times in its dossier, or his fingerprints behind the chaos going on in the British Parliament in the hopes of sabotaging Brexit with his funding of a Remainer organization called Best for Britain, even with his fingerprints in proximity to 16-year-old environmentalist Greta, how dare you, Thunberg, in terms of her guide who works for a Soros-funded organization. I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity for us to sit back and count the number of nations that have formally and officially banned George Soros and his open society from their borders. And we're going to find out why we can expect that number to continue to rise. But first, I can't thank you all enough for ordering our Nationalist Populist book bundle with swag. We had such a great response. And again, I can't thank you enough for your support of this channel. And again, just as a way of extending that gratitude, we've decided to extend the deadline from midnight last night to Thursday of this week. I know a lot of you were just getting to watch the latest videos that were talking about the deadline, so you didn't get a chance to grab your bundle, but now you can. Click on that link below. You get all my 5 books detailing the rise of the nationalist populist age all throughout the world. So you get my Return of Christendom, you'll get the New Nationalism, you get A Triumph of Tradition, you get President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future, and you get Uprising, which is how the Yellow Vest protests are already changing the globalist world order. In addition to the books, you also get a MAGA hat, your very own MAGA hat to put it on a bookshelf or on your head. You get your own Turley Talks tumbler to put your coffee in. You get your Turley Talks executive journal to write your notes in, all for one crazy low price, getting $50 off the retail price. So click on that link down below, support this channel, and let's celebrate the rise of a new conservative age together. And let's have some fun, shall we? There are now 6 nations that have officially banned George Soros from their borders. And what I want to do is I want to go in reverse order from the latest one that banned him, and that would be the Philippines, okay? I don't know if you've been familiar with what's going on in the Philippines of late, but they really are part of this mass shift to the nationalist populist right. Their president, of course, is Rodrigo Duterte, and a number of articles, even a major academic book, have been written on the rise of the nationalist populism in the Philippines as embodied by the Duterte presidency. And I know that for those of us on this channel, all we need to know about Duterte's populist bona fides is that he has as one of his chief enemies the ultra-notorious George Soros. And for a number of reasons, Duterte blames Soros for crashing the Southeast economy through his ruthless currency speculation. And Duterte has also been merciless in his crackdown on drug trafficking in the Philippines, which goes against Soros's global attempts to legalize drugs. Now, a few months back, Soros was planning on visiting the Philippines, or what he was calling a humanitarian visit, whatever that means. But upon hearing of it, Duterte publicly warned Soros that if he steps foot in his country, then there'll be a bounty on his head. And what makes his warning extra ominous is that the Philippine House of Representatives approved a proposal a couple of weeks prior to that to reinstate the death penalty. So in light of that, Duterte went a step further and he said, you know, there's a special place in hell for you, you idiot, George Soros. And you step 1 foot in this country and I'll be happy to take you straight there. All right, that was Duterte. Soros is not welcome in the Philippines. Now, the Philippines banning was, of course, on the heels of Soros getting kicked out of Hungary. Back in December 2018, Soros's Open Society Foundations announced that it had become impossible to work in what they called the repressive atmosphere of Hungary, and that they were picking up and moving their operations to Berlin. Now, this was in response to the massive landslide win of Viktor Orban, who's become the mortal enemy of Soros. And at the heart of his campaign, Orban promoted what's commonly referred to as the Stop Soros Law, which penalizes NGOs, non-governmental agencies, that seek to undermine Hungary's border security in a number of ways, and in effect flood the nation with immigrants, refugees. What such a law mandates is that these NGOs would be required to obtain national security clearance, and if they've been funded by an outside source, a source outside of the borders of Hungary, like George Soros's money here in the United States, then they would be required to pay a 25% tax on those contributions, which is, of course, more than most NGOs can bear. So Orban just doesn't play around. Hungary's going to secure its borders, and if you're actively attempting to thwart that, then you're going to face some pretty stiff penalties. And the interesting thing here is you could still do it. No one's technically stopping you from trying to open up the borders to mass immigration. But if you do, then you're going to have to suffer the consequences of countermeasures to secure the border, okay? And so, as a result of Orban's landslide win, roughly 100 employees of George Soros' foundation started packing up their offices, and it looks like they are gone for good as far as Hungary is concerned. And then, right around the same time, Soros and his Open Society foundations were banned from Russia. Russia passed a law that no longer permitted Soros to fund organizations operating within its borders. The Open Society Foundation were considered a threat to the foundations of the Russian constitutional system and the security of the state, which includes the notion, interestingly enough, of what the Russians call spiritual security. Now, we've talked about this in other videos, and I found Julie Elkner's research in this area very, very helpful. Spiritual security is considered a subset of national security, and a number of policy documents issued by the Putin government. Spiritual security is designed as a primary measure by which traditional Russian values, embodied particularly by the Russian Orthodox Church, can be protected and perpetuated in the midst of globalized assaults, like what we're seeing from Soros and the Open Society foundations. So since the year 2000, Russian statesmen have concluded that the assurance of the Russian Federation's national security included protecting the nation's cultural, spiritual, and moral legacy and the historical traditions and standards of public life. So there has to be a state policy that maintains the population's spiritual and moral welfare, as well as counter the adverse impact of any organization seeking to undermine that spiritual and moral welfare. And so George Soros's active attempt at liberalizing societies, destroying the centrality of their religions, their cultures, their traditional foundations, that was considered a threat to the national security of Russia, and he and his organizations were effectively banned. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, just before he was kicked out of Hungary and Russia, Soros's Open Society announced that it was packing up and moving permanently out of Turkey. And this is because of the Turkish president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He's made Soros and the Open Society Foundation a target in his effort to unite the nation around his vision of a traditionalist conservatism, in this case, Islamic conservatism, of course. Erdogan has accused Soros of stoking up division and protests in Turkey, particularly in what's called the Gezi Park protests back in 2013. It sparked some of the biggest political challenges to Erdogan's 15-year rule. And so the question, of course, was who was financing these mass protests and demonstrations? And Erdogan didn't have to look far until he found Soros's fingerprints. And so Erdogan has banished Soros from Turkey. Now, prior to that, in November of 2018, before Soros was kicked out of Turkey, in August of 2018, the nation of Poland deported a top Soros operative. I believe the charge was an abuse of what's called the Schengen Information System. And this operative was considered a threat to national security and public order by Polish officials. And so the Nationalist Populist Law and Justice Party ended up kicking her out, and as a result, Soros's organization as a whole out of Poland. The year before that, back in 2017, Pakistan had ordered George Soros' foundation to close their doors and leave the country. They didn't give really any explanation. The Open Society Foundation was basically forced to pack their bags and leave Pakistan on the basis that Soros's registration application had been denied. So they just got kicked out of Pakistan. So all told, George Soros has now been expelled from 6 different nations, from the Philippines, Hungary, Russia, Poland, Turkey, and Pakistan, which of course raises the question, which nations are going to expel him next? You see, this is something that Soros and his cronies are going to have to get used to. In a world that's more and more turning to nation, culture, custom, and tradition as the basis for a sustainable social order, the ultra-liberal globalist vision of Soros will not only appear more and more implausible and futile, it will actually begin to be seen more and more as a threat, a very real threat to the unity and stability of a conservative, nationalist, traditionalist vision of life, which will invite not only his condemnation within a nation, but indeed his eventual expulsion as well. So, sorry, George, time to make way for the new nationalist and populist normal. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Of course, make sure to click on that link below. Get your own nationalist, populist book bundle with swag. You have till Thursday to get over $50 off the retail price. We only have a limited number, so don't wait. As of this Thursday, the offer ends. So click on that link below and support our channel with your own book bundle swag and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. God bless.